So, all right. So we're back with the other Cindy on the podcast, Cindy Bertrand-Flores, and we're going for Deadly Roots. And today we have an interesting one, a really interesting one. And I think because of, with the upcoming election happening in 60 days or something like that?
Less than that, I think.
Less than that. The debate's happening right now. I thought it might be interesting to get the deadly roots of some presidents. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, I don't
even know how we start this. Okay.
Exactly.
So go ahead,
look at this.
There's like a crazy list. It's like 8 pages long.
So why don't you just start?
How did you come about this?
Exactly.
Material? Let's start there.
So we already know that I built the serial killer family tree, and we know that there's a connection to the Mayflower. So I have all of the killers listed under their Mayflower ancestor. And then as far as the presidents are concerned, I was like, out of curiosity, how many presidents descend from the Mayflower as well? So I've got them on the list as on a sideline.
Well, that's interesting because everyone always thinks that all the presidents were on the Mayflower or descendants of the Mayflower.
Yeah, not even close.
Right.
There you go.
So how many presidents were connected to the Mayflower?
So 8 presidents total.
That's it.
That's it.
Out of 46.
Out of 46. So,
wow, that's not that many.
It's really not. Considering the amount of it's still 17%. It's a lot. And by that, not compared to killers, there's way more of those. But by the standards of 0.9% of the population being Mayflower descendants. So, but considering all these presidents have these colonial roots, all but 1 or 2, that number should be considerably higher.
Yeah.
Because knowing how many serial killers in the family tree were recent European, that's nothing, like a drop in the bucket compared to how many presidents should be descendant of the Mayflower.
All right, cool. So I'm looking at this document that you prepared, which is very vast. It's 8 pages long, lots of names here. So tell me how you have this. You have 2 columns here. So the far left column, you have the killers.
Right.
And then at the top of that
the end column. So the middle column is the presidents. So Francis Cook, Mayflower passenger, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and then the Bush. So Papa Bush and George Bush Jr. descend from Francis Cook. So we have a family tie. So you get the 2, right? I believe the same thing happens with John Adams.
Okay, well, so wait. Let's stop for a second. Let's go back.
You go super fast. You got to slow us down.
So looking at the Mayflower families, we're looking at Francis Cook. Mm-hmm. That family line was on the Mayflower. And the killers related to that line are Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Douglas Clark, Brendan Dassey, Stephen Avery, and Gary Heidnik. Mm-hmm. And the presidents that are related to Francis Cook are George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., and Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
That's right.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Cook family?
Not a whole lot. I think that there's something period with the Mayflowers. I don't know too much. I can't even remember what his wife's name was because I don't have it in front of me.
Was it Isabella?
Could be. I don't have that info in front of me. I just got.
Okay, that's fine.
His name's on the list. We're good. I'd have to check the tree. But
and then how did you I know you when you do these things and you do these research and you put this stuff in. How did you come to this list of the presidents? It's the same way you did the other ones? And
no, that information's already available online. So you just you would look up the famous kin of the presidents. But specifically, you can say which presidents are Mayflower descendants, and there are already lists famous kin of Mayflower descendants, things like that.
So interestingly enough, the Fuller family line, which has.
Well, I want to go back here and talk about the Cook line.
All right, well, let's start. Forget what I said. Just start over.
No, it's not start over. I just want to talk. We don't have to start over. I just want to go back. I don't want to go past it because I have some questions. So it's interesting. So that would mean does that mean that Franklin, FDR, and the 2 Bush presidents, they're related to each other?
They are related to each other, yes.
Interesting. So a bipartisan,
right?
Yeah, genetic thing there. So that's interesting. And that now, is there any way to determine if they're related more to one particular serial killer or not, or is it just a line?
Franklin D. Roosevelt has heavy amounts of Mayflower. Not that I built his tree, but I can promise you he's the one related to the most serial killers.
Okay.
Just
Wow.
by seeing the amount, like he's the one, he's kind of like the John Wayne Gacy of presidents. Not that he's a killer, but John Wayne Gacy has the most Mayflower ancestors. Franklin D. Roosevelt has the most Mayflower ancestors. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. So, and then
Well,
I know you want to talk about colors. Go ahead.
well, what about Teddy Roosevelt? Because he's related to FDR.
Yeah, no. Teddy Roosevelt has no Mayflower.
Really?
Oh, because it's probably okay. Because one relative
side or something. Mm-hmm.
All right, so he fell off the thing there.
Somewhere where it splits, because they're like fourth cousins. They're not.
Oh, I thought they were closer than that.
It's like I looked. It's like fourth cousins. I was like, oh, they're not even close.
Yeah, no, I'm looking through this list. So that means, all right. So Dennis. So FDR is also related to BTK, Dennis Rader.
Yeah.
And Israel Keyes and Jack Ball. He's also related to who else that's on here? Brendan Dassey.
Yeah, I think he's also on the.
And then let me see if there's any more. David Hendricks.
Yeah.
Did we say David Hendricks?
Yeah,
No.
well, he's also on the Cook line, David Hendricks.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Dahmer's on the Cook line, which
Jeffrey
is
Dahmer?
so ridiculous. Jeffrey Dahmer is on the Cook line.
Well, there's also, it looks like FDR and the Bush Senior and Junior, also related to Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Is that correct? So that would be Ted Bundy
and Jodi Arias.
Jodi Arias.
Oh,
and I don't know if everybody remembers who Jodi is. I mean, I wouldn't classify her as a serial killer, but she's a twisted killer is that. You know, I mean, if you remember what she did to her boyfriend and videotaped it, and then.
Yeah, it's a
Did
crazy.
she videotape it?
Excuse me?
She videotaped it?
She videotaped some of the things, I think. I mean, I think that's how they got her. I mean, there was a lot of information on that. Yeah, it was a horrible, the poor guy. She really brutally murdered him. And then also George Bush Jr. is related to Brian Kohberger.
On his mother's side, yeah.
Really? How far distant?
Oh, they would be like ninth cousins or something, or 9 points removed, something like that. Still, a relation is a relation.
That's right. All right, so that's pretty crazy. I'm trying to think, and then trying to think if I have any more questions about those guys. We also have Ulysses Grant.
Yeah, Ulysses Grant was Mayflower descendant,
and he's related to Dahmer and Hendricks as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy.
And he's only got one Mayflower descendant.
And Ulysses Grant is also related to FDR.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. It's weird how this works.
Well, and that's the thing. And so when they did the calculations of how many, people descend from the Mayflower, when they calculated it, they figure one Mayflower passenger to a non-Mayflower passenger that got married and had 2 children. The problem is, some people descend from 10 Mayflower passengers because they lived in a small area. They would marry each other and have children, and they were in a certain area. Those children would get married. So you end up having multiple Mayflower ancestors if you descend from the Mayflower. So that calculating doesn't work. It doesn't take in pedigree collapse like we talked about in one of the first episodes.
Yep.
Your tree folds in on itself. You can have that same ancestor multiple times. I know Dahmer's got the Fuller line several times, as does Gacy. And I don't recall, but there are other killers who, like, I think Franklin I haven't looked at Franklin D. Roosevelt's tree, but he descends from so many, he likely has multiple of the same Mayflower ancestor, as well as descending from, I think, 4. Descends from
I just find it funny how it's like FDR is related and the Bushes are related to Steve Avery. That's just such a departure, from Making of a Murderer. I mean, that's just like that guy. It's interesting. It's interesting how these kind of blue blood family lines have intertwined. Like Douglas Clark makes sense because he came from well-off means, and I think his father was an ambassador. And I think he was, right? Wasn't he an ambassador like that? He was working in the government. So
Douglas Clark might have Hopkins as well. However, the ancestor that he has, dead end for me, and it's kind of fairly recent, but he has a Hopkins ancestor. And he does have Mayflower on other lines. And if you got one Mayflower passenger, you'll likely have another one.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a Hopkins ancestor. It is most likely a descendant of Stephen Hopkins.
So that's
just like
me. He's
It could be
related
your
to me. Wonderful.
It's possible.
Yeah, because you're Hopkins.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was on the Hopkins line, yeah.
My mother's family.
that makes
Mhm.
sense.
It does.
It does make sense.
Not that my mother's anything.
No,
My mother's,
but just
her family's a little kooky.
yeah, we're kooky. Yeah. All right. So now we have John Alden, the Alden line,
Mhm.
and then that is John Quincy. Only two: John Quincy Adams and John Adams. So the
Yeah.
father and son,
Let me get to that.
and
Mhm.
and Paul Bernardo are the
Mhm.
serial killers. Well, Brian Koberger. Oh,
Yeah.
William Suff. William
Yeah.
Suff.
Did your wife tell you? I did look into William Suff.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
That's so interesting how all this stuff connects together.
Well, and thinking about this, like my mother's side has this long line, like Douglas Clark, of these really blue, intense eyes. I'm just thinking about that.
Interesting. And that's the thing I noticed about the descendants of, I think John Alden. It could be Alden or Allerton. I don't recall. Where they're all light hair, blue eyes. So you can easily tell that they kind of descend from the same ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the Alden line or I think it's Alden. Alden
Right.
or Allerton. Who has Paul Bernardo? Yeah, it's probably the Alden line.
Yeah, it's Alden.
Yeah, it is probably the Alden line.
Does he have
Because
blue eyes?
that's the one it'd be what's that guy's name? Zac Efron. A lot of blonde actresses and actors. Light hair, blue
Zac
eyes.
Efron, yeah.
I believe Zac Efron's on that same line.
5, 6, 7.
Well, he's not a president.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying at one point I looked at famous kin of them, and there were a lot of light hair.
Just to clarify for everyone, the 8 presidents that are connected to the Mayflower are Franklin D. Roosevelt, George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Zachary Taylor, John Quincy Adams, John Adams, Ulysses Grant, James Garfield.
That's it.
And that's it. Okay. So now we know Francis Cook has Roosevelt and the 2 Bushes. The priest line, DeGory Priest from the Mayflower.
Who's that?
Has John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Rader, Israel Keyes, Jack Ball. He also has Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So that's the second one that FDR is related to. And then FDR is also related to the Warren line. And the Richard Warren line is also connected to Jeffrey Dahmer and David Hendricks and Ulysses Grant. So Ulysses Grant and FDR were related. That's crazy. And then there's the Howland line.
Henry Howland.
Henry Howland, who's a Mayflower father. He was related to Ted Bundy, Richard Hoffman, Jodi Arias.
Well,
and then
the Richard Hoffman one, we have to exclude him. I put him on the list because he's in the tree. The guy who said his grandfather was the Zodiac, Richard Hoffman is that guy. So he was a cop, and I heard he was a suspect as the Zodiac, but never arrested. So
yeah, so it's just a speculation.
So John Howland is also related to FDR and the Bushes, senior and junior.
Yeah. You know what? I have, because there's been quite a few people saying that, their father was the Zodiac. In fact, I'm talking to someone right now that we're doing research on, who I've been speaking to for the past year, and he sent me some pretty compelling documents. I'd love for you to run his name to see what that is.
Yeah, to see if there's any connection.
And I'll offline, I'll give it to you. But, but his, be curious.
So John Alden line from the Mayflower is related to John Quincy Adams and John Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're related to Paul Bernardo, Brian Koberger, and William Suff.
Doesn't look like anybody's related to Ed Kemper. No president's related to Ed Kemper.
No.
And then on the Allerton line, oh, that's Isaac. Yeah, Isaac Allerton has Zachary Taylor and Franklin D. Roosevelt. And then as far as killers are concerned, it's John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Rader, Israel Keys, Randy Kraft, Brendan Dassey, Stephen Avery, and Jack Wall. Did we go over that one already?
I think so.
No, that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I do think it's interesting that, well, this is weird because the Stephen Hopkins line, my great uncle was Vice President Charles Curtis, but he's not here.
Well,
he's not
good.
connected. Maybe he's not connected to the Hopkins line. Maybe he's connected to the other side.
Could be.
Yeah, it's true because you're related to him,
because I'm
but he's
related
not.
to Charles Curtis, but Stephen Hopkins is not related to Charles Curtis, so that's interesting. And on the Fuller line, there's no presidents.
None. And over 20 killers. So
Over 20 killers.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a deep dive into the Fuller family. We're just lining up some experts to talk to about that. But
yeah, and
I just think that's crazy. On the Fuller line, there's 20 killers, no presidents.
yeah, John Wayne Gacy, Anthony Casey, Bobby Fuller.
Casey Anthony.
Oh, Casey Anthony. I'm sorry, I'm reading it backwards. Casey Anthony Casey, Charles Manson, David Fuller, David Hendricks, Diane Downs, Edmund Kemper, Jack Fuller, Gary.
There's 4 of them that are I'm working on. They have Fullers. They have question marks next to their name. So
Okay. H.H. Holmes, Holly Crippen, Jamie Fuller. That's the question mark. Jeffrey Dahmer, Todd Colehep, Lauren Thomas, Michael Bear Carson, Otis Toole, Patrick Kearney. It's a lot. So it's amazing that there's not more. I mean, look at me. We're like, at this point, we're surprised that there's not more presidents on there. I mean,
no, I
a
know.
lot of people thought, oh, why isn't Trump on there?
Right.
You know, why isn't, you know?
He's not.
Trump's got recent Scottish and I think German. I did.
Yeah,
it is true.
I think that's what it is.
But who did you say that Trump was connected to? Didn't you say he was connected to Kamala?
Well, they might be. Only she's got ancestors from Fife, Scotland. Now, Trump's ancestors are actually from more north, but because Trump descends from King James of Scotland, and that's about an hour and a half distance from Fife. Now, I could only, because the Kamala's, got the East Indian on the one side and could be some black. There's some kind of color there on the
Jamaican, I believe.
Well, he was from Jamaica, but he's not. There are some colored. There's pictures of her ancestors online, and they're dark. I couldn't say, if they I don't know. They look unusual. And there could be some Chinese too. Different mix.
Some Asian.
Not so good for Jamaica, so I don't know. But
yeah, well, Jamaica is known. There's a big Indian population in Jamaica.
I heard that she might have some East Indian on her father's side.
I don't know if that relates to her at all, but I know, when we go there a lot on vacation, and just the history of it, because it was a British colony at one point. So, I was surprised how many, there was a lot of Indian people living there, and they owned a lot of the businesses and a lot of the shops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Had no clue.
I heard that there's Chinese. I heard that there's all sorts of different groups that had come over and settled in Jamaica. So, but she does have, there are some pictures and they're dark skinned. So I'm just not sure that they look very African.
Mm-hmm.
Unusual, and I can't place it. So it's something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she does have those ancestors from Fife, Scotland on her father's side. And King James was from an hour and a half away from Fife. Because I can't check out her tree and migration or whatever, she could possibly be related just by way of how people intermingled in the same area. Likely they would be distantly related through some sort of Scottish ancestor.
Yeah, because I believe she's, because you're from Canada originally, right?
I am.
Yeah, well, didn't she live in Canada at some point? I think she was raised in Canada. She went to school in Canada at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about her background.
Canadian roots. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that Trump is not on here, and
no Clinton. No Clintons.
Clintons are not on here, and neither is Biden.
Yeah.
No, Biden has some colonial roots. Maryland, usually that area. He's got British. He's got Irish. He's recent Irish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I put his son in the tree because I was just curious.
A hunter.
So yeah, so he's related to some of the killers. But
who's he related to?
I don't. I don't know. Let me tell you. If I look him up, one I should be able to.
Okay.
Because it's going to be on his mother's side. He's got more of those connections than his
Mm-hmm.
father does.
That's
might be on
interesting.
Let me look.
Let me see that last page.
Okay.
Mm-mm-mm.
Hunter Biden. Hayden Clark and Bradfield Clark. He's related to them.
Okay.
He's related to Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey, Jack Joseph Ball, and Wade Wilson. You know Wade Wilson?
Wade, yeah, he's the guy who just got he just got his sentence.
Uh-huh.
What do they call him? What's his name? Is his tag? Deadpool killer, yeah.
And he's related to Stephen King, interestingly. He's related to William Lester Suff.
He's related to William Suff?
Ooh.
Yeah. And then Roy Norris and the Baldwin brothers.
Ooh. Oh, the Baldwin brothers are related to the Toolbox Killer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So that's interesting about Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So James Garfield was a president, and he was related to the Billington line. Only one killer, David Hendrickson. And then George Bush Jr. was related to the Henry Sampson line.
Well, he's related to. He's got a bunch. He's got a bunch of lines.
Well, he's related to Brian Koberger several times.
Yeah, so he's in the Cook line. Junior's in the Cook. Why would Junior be in a different line?
His mother.
Because of the mother.
His mom's side, yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
So that means he got Mayflower from mom and dad.
Yeah. So he's related. All right. So he's related on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So he's really, he's on both sides of his family, his father and his mother.
Right.
How common is that?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Roosevelt's the same. He's got Roosevelt is related to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Mayflower families.
Remember what I said about DNA attracting to itself and things like that. That's why it's not uncommon. Like DNA finds a way to put itself back together, and so you would end up with it on your mother's side and on your father's side, so.
Yeah. FDR.
He may have multiple, like he may have mom and dad on the same Mayflower passenger. I mean, I didn't look at his tree. I just looked at which presidents descend from Mayflower passengers.
Right. So there's only 8.
Yeah.
But if you look at the patterns of some of these killers, you've got several of them on different lines, right? Like Casey Anthony, she's on the Edward Dottie line. She's also on the Fuller line.
And remembering that not all of the killers in the trees are even finished inside the tree.
Right.
So this is just preliminary. I still got a lot of work to do to polish off everyone's trees. There could be a big chunk that I haven't even finished that could yield a bunch of Mayflower. You know what I mean? So these are just for now. But we know factually that there are only 8 presidents that descend from the Mayflower.
Got it.
Interesting.
So the percentage-wise is a way higher for serial killers that descend from the Mayflower.
And then you have this other cluster of like merchant adventurers. Are they all related?
No, that's just I have a lot of notes.
Okay.
Well, the other one is that the other presidents like Clinton, Fletcher, Tilley, and Moore
have no killer descendants to those. So now Tilley was married to John Howland. So for the killers, there's nobody on the Tilley line because it matches her husband's father.
Mm-hmm.
But because John Howland has Franklin D. Roosevelt, George Bush Sr. and Jr., they have Tilley because the wife was the Tilley. Her parents died, I believe. I think that was the case. So
the one that says that there's no killers in the family, but they're related to the women that survived the first winter. Is that correct?
No, that is again a separate note. Ignore that.
Okay.
Line. So it says no killers. No serial killers descend from the Chilton, Fletcher, Tilley, or Moore. Interesting that there are 0 presidents from the Moore line as well. And then there are 0 presidents on the Chilton line and the Fletcher line, but the Tilley line there are presidents that descend from Tilley, which are Franklin D. Roosevelt, George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
But why is it not that there are plenty of descendants that descend from Chilton, Fletcher, and Moore, but the Moore, what I like about the Moore line, and I actually didn't really look too much into Chilton and Fletcher, but the Moore line, that's the 3 Moore children. There was 3, right? Only one of them survived, but he has descendants. No celebrities, no presidents, no killers. That was interesting. You know, because think about when people like celebrities, people build out their trees all the time. I don't even have to do it. It's already done. It's online. It's there. Because people just want to know. And 0, you know how many celebrities and notable people's trees have been done? None are on that Moore line. No killers either, and no presidents.
That's weird.
Wow.
Yeah, I like them. Now, the Moore line is supposed to be the only one that's proven royal descent. So it's interesting. They say he's the descent of, I don't know, his 11th great grandfather was some king, but yeah, he's supposed to have royal blood. And his DNA confirms it, but yeah, no presidents, no nothing on that line.
What's the full name of that ancestor?
I think it's Richard Moore. He's not in the trick. I haven't looked it up.
Yeah.
Huh. Is he related to Thomas More?
I don't know. Who's Thomas More?
Okay, never mind. Cut that out.
Yeah. Well, you're related to Charlemagne.
I am.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. I just find it's interesting how what the DNA connection from like just those big 3, FDR, Bush Sr. and Bush Jr., and how many they're related to.
But it is interesting though, because like on my father's side, I'm related to Charlemagne, not my mother's. My mother's side, I'm related to Hopkins.
Royalty on your dad's side, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it through French kings or what? How do you get to Charlemagne?
It's French, but it goes French and then Italian, Austrian and then Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Trying to think. Sampson family, Fuller. So these ones that you have on question marks, you're still kind of diving in.
I love to have some DNA to break through those brick walls. I'm going to do, especially for Wade Wilson, because he's potentially a Fuller. I'm going to kind of put a call out on my social media. If anybody descends from the guy that I'm stuck on, who was born in the 1700s, Captain William Fuller, if anybody descends from him, if they've done their DNA, share their results with me, and I will see if they've done their DNA and they descend from him. I'll find out who his parents were.
Wow.
From Chester, Massachusetts. So here's a Fuller from Massachusetts, and I'm like, come on, I just want to connect him. You know, it's going to connect, but I don't have the documents yet. So
I'm just, I think what could possibly happen when someone listens to this who's politically connected, you could do some serious oppositional research on some of these candidates to find out, to be kind of, hey, is this candidate, related to a serial killer? Let me show you.
There's only 8, and they're all dead.
But those are the ones that for future or even politicians, just I find out which ones are. I mean, I'm sure in other, we went to the top there, but I'm sure, there's hundreds of congressmen and.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine that.
I think it's interesting to see which ones are related to each other.
Yeah.
Which presidents are related to each other and which celebrities are related to which presidents.
Right.
I think you've done that.
It matters. It took a unique set of ancestors to create you, but the ones that you're related to, that matters. Like the Kimball line, for instance, the one where we discovered there are 6 cannibals on that line. There are now 15 killers on the Kimball line, but 6 of them practice the same disgusting ritual. Right. So
goes back to those patterns, like these clusters and these patterns. Like people
and Gypsy Rose is kind of the same thing. So she happens to be related to a lot of people who killed their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be a coincidence because it's not.
Yeah, that's weird. That's very specific. The matricide thing is, that's.
It is interesting, though, that there's only 8 presidents that descend from the Mayflower. I would have thought there would have been more.
However, I do know who George Washington's related to because I found that out yesterday or the day before. So he's related to Douglas Clark, Dorothea Puente. Hold on, and there's another one.
So he could be related to me because I'm related to Douglas Clark.
No, because it's a Virginia connection. It's through the Pope line. Oh, my eyes are getting old. Okay. Come on, where are you, George? Too many people.
Well,
with the name
George Washington, why isn't he on this list if he's related to Douglas Clark?
Because it's a Virginia ancestor that they share. Those are Mayflower ancestors.
Oh, Mayflower. Okay. I
Right.
forgot.
So
We're sticking with the Mayflowers.
Nathaniel Pope is George Washington's great great grandfather, and then from him, Douglas Clark, Dorothea Puente, and Edmund Kemper.
There you go.
There
So
you have it.
we've connected Kemper to a president.
Also,
not-
potentially, they have popes in their tree from Virginia. If I could, I'm just on. Oh, I'm in the wrong account. I'm just looking for a screenshot of what I did yesterday in my video. And Jodi Arias and Ted Bundy are related. I found that one. She's actually kind of heavily related to Ted Bundy.
Really?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I wonder if she knows that.
Oh, she might like that.
She might. I don't know.
I don't recall the guy's name, but he's potentially on that line. There's another killer. I'll have to look it up. But so there's a potential for 2 more killers that have Pope ancestors as well from Virginia that would connect, but I can't
To
get
George
further.
Washington.
Yeah.
Because George Washington's on the Virginia line, not the Mayflower line.
Right. And so now, because the Pope name does stand out, so you know how we have our groups of northern killers and we have our southern killers? The southern killers, some people have both. But the southern killers have, I'm like, oh, so many ancestors to add versus the northern ones, because usually they have that recent German and you're like, hey, we're done. But there's bigger trees when you go south. And the Pope name stands out the most as far as names that I run across a lot. Also, snow. I have to dig further, but I'm starting to work on those Virginia Southern root killers trees and finding these connections. But I do notice the name Pope a lot. So
Pope.
now you'll find people related to George Washington, usually on the Warner line or the Washington line, but generally not on the Pope line. This would be less.
Okay. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
So John Alden on the Mayflower line is related to John Quincy Adams and John Adams, and they're related to Paul Bernardo, Brian Koberger, and William Suff. So Brian Koberger's on here quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
The most is going to be Gacy. the Gacy has the most Mayflower. Let me see how many. How many? He's got 1.
Yeah,
2,
he's got
3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh my gosh.
6 Mayflower. Wait. 6. Yeah, John Wayne Gacy descends from 6 Mayflower passengers.
Yeah, and he's 1, 2, 3. Oh, excuse me. And it looks like three presidents. He's related to 3 presidents. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's only 8 presidents that are descendants of the Mayflower line, and he's related to 3 of them. So those are pretty big statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Huh. Well,
I'd love to find out. I mean, we know a little bit. Obviously, the president we probably know the most. The presidents we know the most of, just kind of their demeanor, because it is George Bush Sr. and Jr. Since we were alive and like that. But to get the psychological profile of FDR and some of these others,
like John Quincy Adams,
exactly,
and
to find
Ulysses Grant,
yeah,
Zachary Taylor. I don't know anything about Zachary Taylor as president. Not much. And then, Be interesting to parallel FDR and the Bushes because they're so polar opposite on politics.
Yeah, but you're also
and James Garfield.
Yeah.
So James Garfield was related to the Billington line, which only has David Hendricks.
I don't worry about the Billington line. So Billington line, that's John Billington, who was America's first recorded murderer, who was tried and hung for it. However,
wasn't he wrongfully convicted?
No, I mean they claim that he shot somebody, right? I say he did it in self-defense, protecting his property, and I firmly believe that. I don't think he murdered anybody out of malice. So he was tried and executed for it. But the fact that there's only one killer on that line speaks volumes to me. Like that guy was innocent. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, yeah, the Fuller line has so many. We have to find out why. Like, why does that one specific family line have 18 killers that you found so far?
Why does the Moore line have 0? So if they did cannibalize victims, let's say the Mayflower passengers, which I firmly believe that some of them did, I would say that the boy Richard did not partake, which would explain why he has 0 killers descending from him. He didn't partake in the evil. He was a child. Versus some adults. Now, Edward Fuller's son Samuel, he had one son, and there was a lot of killers that descend from him. Now, he would then be raised, so he would have been, I don't know how old he was, but he came over with his father, and his parents died the first winter, and then his uncles took him.
I think wasn't he like a 10-year-old or something?
I don't know, but I worry that he might have partook in some of the feeding exercises. You know what I mean? Like cannibalism or whatever. I'm sure is shit that they did. So
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're pushed to your brink, and it's whether starving or not. I mean, we've seen that's happened. A lot of stuff. Remember that soccer team in the Andes that got stranded up there.
The airplane
Yeah.
incident going up in the
crash up in the Andes of the soccer team, like in the 70s, and they were stuck up there, and they had to start cannibalizing. It was because that's
this family don't eat my body.
Well, it's interesting. I just think it's interesting that there's only 8 presidents here. I would like to see.
I actually thought there were going to be more.
Me too. I do want to see.
Because it takes a certain type of personality, a risk taker, someone, a maverick, someone who's going to do something. And to be perfectly honest, you got to be a certain kind of, I wouldn't say personality to want to be the most powerful person in the country or the planet. So it's just like, it's interesting that like I said, I thought when we decided we were going to do this, I was expecting a larger list. So it's, I'm glad that there isn't, but I'm surprised that there is.
I'd have to look at their full trees to see who they descend from, but I think it's a different beast. What makes a president versus what makes a serial killer. Again, it takes a unique set of ancestors, and I'd have to literally study all the president's trees, look for their common ancestors. So I find some lines breed success, like the Lawrence line. Or the Washington line, Lawrence Washington. I find that line breeds success. A lot of famous kin. So it depends on the line. Some lines breed more success. And people on those lines, and you can, like Olympians, that takes a certain kind of a person, a certain kind of personality. And then you'll find like a family line that has a lot of writers on it or a lot of athletes on it. It's different qualities get passed down, curses and gifts. So
yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Well, we're gonna have to do a deep dive into some of these lines to understand how the patterns are.
Which ones would you recommend doing a deeper dive on that we'd want to do a deeper dive on that you think you'd probably find more information on?
As far as ancestors or killers, well, for the Fullers, obviously, is the biggest one and the one that requires the most investigating. I wanna really try to figure out what's out of all of these killers, and there's so many. What's the one thing that jumps out the most? I don't follow serial killers. I don't know what these people did. I don't know what their MO was. Like how we found all the cannibals, 6 cannibals on one family line out of the 7 cannibals in the tree, and potentially Dahmer could actually be part of that as well. So what is it that comes out of this killer line that there's a a pattern? Like, what is the most common type of killer thing that they did? And like family, like what did you call it? What do you call it when you kill your mom?
Matricide.
Yeah, right. So I mean, we know that what's her face is related to a lot of people who kill their moms, but that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out with these killers. What's the connection to the groups of them? Why this ancestor? Why that many killers?
Yeah. Well, like I said, the name that sticks out to me at all this, especially in the Francis Cook line, is the Stephen Avery. Is it just like
he has a lot of cursed lines. So yeah,
he has a lot of what lines?
cursed family lines. There's a lot of lines that have the highest amounts of killers that he descends from.
Oh
So the
wow.
same DNA in them is in him.
Yeah. I mean, because technically he's not a serial killer. I mean, he was
Right.
charged with a murder and then was not charged. And the whole, if you know that whole story of go watch Making of a Murder, it's a kind of a twisted tale. And but yeah, that to me, that name is very interesting. So within these killers, I'm just curious to see. Like John Wayne Gacy, that's to me, he's fascinating because he's related to so many of them. And it seems like
I had a number. Did I give you the number on the last one? How many killers he's related to?
Oh, Gacy?
Yeah, no. I did a TikTok about it, I think. I said I've seen him out. I think 40.
Wow.
I think about 40 now. He's related to 40 killers.
Wow.
Yeah, the number's jumping. Like the more I build out the trees, the more killer cousins he gets.
Wow.
And it's a lot. I don't recall the number. I have to go look, but
yeah. So it's just how, like, tell me about your process like that when you say you build out the trees. So explain to us, because I know we say it all the time, but just I'm trying to figure out, not how you do it, and like if you keep on looking, will you find more?
Oh no, 100%. But here's the thing, right? So you're adding your parents, your grandparents, and your tree goes like this, and every line branches out. So the first few generations are quick. I hope to find a last name that I like, that I feel will connect, and I can just work on that, and that's how I find these connections. Because I have a good memory for the names that are already in the tree, because I've been doing this for so long. I've been on this tree for years. I like, this guy's already in the tree. I know I've seen him many a times, and the profile's already in there. So once I've added it to that killer and I add their name to it, I'll go in and I merge the profiles and then add all the names to that ancestor so that I have already kept track of who's on that line. So a lot of these trees, like whoever's name I was trying to think of earlier, I still can't think of, who might be related to George Washington. Anyways, I was working on his tree the other day, and I'd only gone 4 generations in. I'm like, oh boy, there's a lot to go here. You have so many. It takes thousands of people to make you. That's a lot of people that you have to find documents for and records to connect that these are the parents of this person, these are their parents, and every single line for every ancestor that you have up to the 1600s. Obviously, serial killer trees, they're easier because most of the time, the first half of the tree is already done. We got recent Europe, we're done. And those lines don't need to be built up. But the lines that do go to colonial America, and that's where we're going to find the connections around the 1600s, sometimes sooner. We have some that are like, fifth cousins, third cousins, 4 times removed, or fourth cousins. But I have to find the common ancestor. I have to remember that they're already in there. Then I need to, if I don't have a note on that person, trace backwards to see who it's attached to. Add a note. Like Jim Jones is now on the list, the cult leader.
Yeah.
Artist in it. Because again, I hadn't worked on his tree in a while. I get distracted. Somebody will say, "Can you look into this person?" Like you guys asked me. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm gonna drop this, add another person, which is why there's a bunch of half-done trees.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So much more to find. So much more.
So Jim Jones. Well, tell us about Jim Jones. Now you brought him up. I mean, to me, he's a massive serial killer.
Yeah, he's on the list.
Some water.
Oh yeah, William Bradford. So he descends from William Bradford.
Oh, okay.
And so he's related to Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
David Hendricks, Joseph D'Angelo, Mark Scott Thornton, William Bradford Bishop, and that's who he's related to on the Bradford line. So no presidents, but I found that very interesting because I hadn't worked.
Well, he's a leader. He's a leader, so it's like he was leading.
He got for murder and for I don't know what all his crimes involved, but it happened somewhere else, right?
Yes, it happened down in South America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah, I was in a gym years ago, and I was in a locker room, and there was this older Asian guy, and he had just taken off his shirt, and he had like a piece of his like chest missing, like a big divot and stuff like that. And then we started talking, and I asked him, I go, "What happened?" I go, "Were you in a car accident?" He goes, "No, I was shot." He goes, "I was the cameraman in Jonestown that went down to cover the thing that was on the runway when he's actually shooting, and he gets shot, and the camera tips over, and he's still rolling, and he kind of loses consciousness. So he actually videotaped himself being shot." And he said, yeah, and he was down there for NBC when they went down there. They brought a congressman down there because there were complaints that they were taking U.S. citizens down there against their will. And, and that's at the same time when they went back to get to the runway airstrip, that's when they were giving everybody the Kool-Aid.
Oh, wow.
It was horrible.
Oh, boy.
I can't even imagine. But yeah, he's right up on the top. I would put it, to me, he's a serial killer.
Well, Manson's on the list too. And I heard that Manson did kill 2 or 3 people, men, not the ones that he went down for. Like,
yeah. I mean, he was the one that kind of organized that. But
I heard that he did kill 3 men, like some other time. I don't know what it was.
Well, that they know of. He could have killed more too, because he was a criminal since he was in teenager. Mm-hmm. He was in and out, but yeah.
I also looked into those recent shooters, the school shooters, the Georgia one.
That's interesting.
Wait, something Gray, Colt Gray, and then somebody asked me about a school shooter from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at their trees, and again, I get distracted. People, okay, look into this guy. Can you look into this guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
go over here to this tree now.
It was horrible. It was a horrible story. Now they're charging the father with murder and manslaughter.
Yeah.
Well, all of this is interesting.
It's fascinating.
So we need
the thing you said before. You says we're all made up of we're made up of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes thousands to make us.
Yeah, and just in the last 400 years, you have thousands of ancestors. Like your tree goes like this, and sometimes it goes like this and like this. But it doubles every generation, and that number gets to be very large. And obviously, you don't have that exact amount, like 8,000, whatever great-grandparents, because there's a little less because of pedigree collapse. But it still takes a lot of people to make you, which makes it even more significant that the Fuller line has so many killers from that one line, or that the Kimballs have 6 cannibals to 1 ancestor. These numbers are significant. And so, yes, if you have colonial roots, you're going to be related to somebody, especially if you like Michigan. Not always. But you're likely to be possibly related to people, especially once you come in contact with that DNA connection. Well, not everybody descends from the Fuller line. Not everybody descends from the Mayflower. I think we're at just on the Fuller line, out of the killers in the tree, 16 to 20% of the killers are just solely on the Fuller line. Fuller killers.
Yeah.
Of 1 ancestor, 16 to 20% of killers is obscene.
It's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's ridiculous.
I'd be curious to see what, because we have someone who talks to some of these killers to let them know that, find out that what their impression is, the fact that they know like Suff, and the fact that he's related to John Wayne Gacy, and who's the other one that, Clark is gone.
Casey Anthony.
That's a
Kemper. She talks to Kemper.
And
Clark has already passed.
Yeah, Clark has already passed. And these other ones, yeah.
It's interesting.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it's fascinating when you think about all this stuff and how you kind of keep on drilling down. And it's interesting that the more you drill down, the more
know that they were related to such and such a serial killer and see what their reaction would be. You're
I
related
know.
to
That's why I'd like to tell Laura to see what if she can,
right.
you know.
Well, we want to do a deep dive into these family lines to see if there's any kind of myths or legends or something surrounding them that may have caused this. We don't know. I mean, there could be something historically that we don't know. We've heard some stories, but we want to kind of verify some of them first.
Yeah. But 8 presidents are related to serial killers?
Well, 9 if we count Washington. He's just not a Mayflower descendant.
That's true. That's true. So I would guess that if you started looking into other presidents, they might be.
I'd have to look at their full trees, to see.
Yeah. So there could be more.
Right, but these are just Mayflower.
Mayflower. But that, to me, Mayflower is significant. It's very significant because it goes back to the beginning of the country and laying the foundations and stuff. Cindy, once again, you blow my mind away with this stuff.
I know. It's like it's like reading it. It keeps going.
And it's like, and I know it's funny listening to you talk about it because it's like you ruminate and you do this stuff, but at the same point, the access to you have it so quickly to your brain and just like, I have to like. It's like if I didn't have this list that you sent us, I'd be. It's crazy.
It is.
It's awesome, crazy.
Though. She calls me like every day. Guess what?
I know.
Guess who's related?
It's exciting for me. Every time I find a killer with Fuller, I said, "Oh yeah, I got another one." I get very excited.
That's crazy. I really can't wait to start looking into the Fuller line and see what's there.
And if I could just finish some of these trees, I know we'd find. Oh my God, a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm positive. So, and it's funny because I tell my brother, "Oh, I got another Fuller." He said, "I knew that guy would be a Fuller." So, like, my brother does follow killers.
So he does. Okay, cool.
He can tell. Who belongs on the Fuller line?
What do you mean he follows him? He just has interest in the like.
Yeah, my brother is a super genius. So I've asked him, can you tell me what is similar with these killers? Like, what do you think? But he knows about the different types of killers, what their MO is, how they do their crimes. Like,
wow,
he's more into like the psychology of, you know, what their brain chemistry, what's going on, why are they doing this? So
why are they wired?
Yeah.
Like that?
What does he do for a living?
Nothing. He's a chess player. He's a chess player. He's a genius.
He's a chess player, so that's why he's okay. That makes sense there.
Right. Yeah. He plays chess. So he's self-employed anyway. He's
okay. Good.
But he has that kind of a mind where he's super genius.
Yeah, people are like, I mean, it's like for us, it's because we cover all this stuff. It's kind of like it's through osmosis. And, but like people like your brother and then also Laura Brand, who does this, for her career. I mean, it's just like, it's amazing, like how she just can access that information, and stuff like that. So
different talents that pass down, different traits.
Well, as we know, she's related to serial killers. So that's probably why.
Interestingly, it's the one she's related to that she's attracted, that she's drawn to.
Exactly. Both of them. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris.
Scary and crazy. Yeah. I'm not interested in any of the ones I'm related to. I don't want to know. Yeah. I don't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to know. Well, I think,
it's scary. I don't know. But I just think it's fascinating, all the connections that you can make. I think genealogy is fascinating and all the connections that you could make and all the patterns. I think the patterns are interesting, trying to see what the clusters are, see what motivates them to do certain things. Is it genetic? Is it learned? Is it what? Are they inheriting these genes? Do these genes become twisted in some way? And one side can go become a president, the other side becomes a serial killer. I mean, that's just fascinating to me. How does that happen? And the attraction for people, like the killers being attracted to their victims, they're tied to some of them genetically. So that to me is interesting as well, because is it genetic memory? Do you have some kind of DNA going like this, or is it a past life, or is it? I mean, I don't know. There's all these questions.
Technically, I mean, all these presidents, they were killers. They had had other people kill people.
George Washington killed people. Was he not in the?
Yeah. I mean, but not. Even if they didn't physically, they ordered people to kill people. Yeah. They were responsible for lots of death. FDR was during World War II. George Bush Jr.
Yeah, the Afghanistan.
So the Afghan.
That's interesting.
9/11.
Yeah, Ulysses Grant. He was, responsible for killing people, killing the enemy. So they death surrounded them.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
There you go. We'll finish with that piece of little observation.
Good job.
I was thinking about it. I go, wait a minute.
It's interesting because I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
They're surrounded by death.
Right.
All right, Cindy. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging on today. I know it was a little busy schedule, crazy-wise, but we got it done.
Awesome.
All right. See you next week.
Okay, see you.